How do you think China is viewing the protests that have been seen in recent weeks?
I think they were taken by surprise by both the extent and the vehemence of the protests. The Tibetan situation seems to have exploded in their faces, and they've been quite unprepared either for the demonstrations or for the fallout therefrom.
So how are they reacting to it?
Well, their initial reaction was one of defiance and putting all the blame, of course, on the Dalai Lama and his clique for promoting splitism in Tibet. And they've been in a kind of damage control mode ever since.
I suppose when people protest, they want to do two things. They want to raise attention in a wider environment, but they also want to affect change. And this comes to the key question. Right. Do you believe, knowing what you know of China, that these protests will affect any real change inside China?
I think not for the better and not for a while. When you poke Chinese leaders in the eye, they generally don't respond in the desired direction. Quiet, gentle, and persistent pressure tends to work better than public humiliation, particularly in an event like this where the Chinese have invested so very much prestige as well as money in staging a successful and glorious Olympics. Any raining on that parade is not going to be taken well.
Obviously, this is creating problems for China. It's creating problems also for the Olympic movement. Take us back to how China got the Olympics. I mean, wasn't part of the deal that China hinted that the Olympics would help them in their own democratic development? What happened to that?
Yes, well, you recall back in 1988 when Seoul was awarded the Olympics, there was a great deal of pressure on the military dictator in South Korea to democratize, and it worked. On the eve of the Olympics, Chun Doo-hwan opened up South Korea and democratized it. And I think that was very much on the minds of the International Olympic Committee members when they voted to give the Games to Beijing this time. Of course, the Beijing Olympic Committee itself played on those expectations and indeed said that in securing the Olympic bid, it was their hope to use the Olympics to help develop China, including human rights and democracy. So they were consciously playing on Western expectations.
And doubtless they'll be judged on that. I mean, some people are saying that only a boycott in some form of the Olympic Games would have any real impact in sending a message to China. What effect, not that anyone's at a senior level is really calling or backing a boycott, but what effect might a boycott, if the mood was to change, what effect would that have on the Olympics themselves?
If it were to spread and become truly contagious with whole Olympic teams not showing up or major heads of state making a point of boycotting because of human rights problems in China, it would be a disaster, both for China and for the Olympic Games. There are ways of making statements quietly and effectively. Staying away from the opening ceremony need not be a highly political action to be highly effective. It all depends on the language one uses. So I think that the Olympics are on the edge right now of rolling downhill into a debacle. My own hope is that they stop before this happens.